This is a story that has been a year in the making. It is a story of ignorance, arrogance, and the blinding influence of an inflated ego. I'm not gonna lie, I've made this video before, and it's concerning how similar someone can behave when there's ample advice for what isn't accepted by most on the internet. You may remember my video on SS Snipewolf more than a year and a half ago, a YouTube creator with nearly 20 million subscribers and a history of deception and manipulation that resulted in her being outed by many communities and having her reputation as a breakthrough woman in gaming completely ruined. However, she still stands. Although her image has fallen, she is able to continue doing what she does with an audience consisting primarily of young teens and impressionable adults, as well as those who lower themselves to worship women based solely on the belief they will be noticed by them. Add 1 part simp to 2 parts ego and we have a terrible concoction brewing, waiting to blow. Now, SS Snipewolf is of course someone that mostly everyone knows. Her history is well documented, as is the criticism people have made towards her, and it still stands to this day. However, she hasn't made any headlines recently, and although she has such a large presence, her prominence in the community is borderline irrelevant. As a personality, she has no clout, no weight in any discussion, and the audience she has cultivated is one of fast food consumers, rather than that of content connoisseurs. But the real question is whether she is that much of an issue now, and well, I don't think she is. She's a good example of what not to do as a YouTuber and essentially a living relic of what happens when the ego goes to your head. With that in mind, since she stepped out of the limelight, the natural balances of the YouTube ecosystem need to be restored, and I believe the person who has filled the shoes of Snipewolf is ultimately worse than she ever was.
Excuse me, Big White Cop. What do you mean? Who could possibly be worse than SS Snipewolf?
Well, if you...
No, you can't tell me that someone that's been terrorising YouTube for the past 7 years can just be let off the hook like that. There needs to be some tea for me to believe your ass.
Well, if you go and grab yourself a beverage, take a seat and get comfortable, then I'll be able to drag your ass all the way to the tea. So, what are you waiting for? Join me as we take a look at the person who has been terrorizing YouTube and anime companies for the past year and has also overtaken Snipewolf as the most disliked reaction channel actively endorsed by YouTube. Prepare to laugh with the most unaware YouTuber to ever grace the community. Let me introduce Suzy Lou.
What is up everyone, and welcome back to my channel. So, I am so excited to be recording this video right now. Basically, there has been a lot happening.
You've probably heard the name, you probably saw the face somewhere in your recommended. It's not every day a complete stranger to many becomes the target of mass attention in the blink of an eye. Suzy Lou is a name and reaction is her game. Sort of. At first glance, there's nothing much to say about Suzy. She seems like the typical reaction YouTuber, sitting there whilst the video plays away and offering noise to the viewer every once in a while.
Chidori! Whoa, what is that jutsu?
He's so badass.
But all of this has changed, and for good reason, for her reaction content is not quite as it seems.
Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be reacting to some more anime episodes. Unfortunately though, due to that John kid, we're not actually making any money anymore, so we're just gonna have to stare at a blank screen today, okay?
From despair rises the hero, and a will to forge your own fantasy. Raid Shadow Legends is the ultimate free-to-play MMORPG on iOS and Android.
Oh my god!
Enter the mystical world of Teleria, where Dark Elves meet the Sacred Order, and the Bannerlords are in an endless war with the Undead Hordes. Assemble a team of powerful champions, train and upgrade them as you embark on the journey of a lifetime. And guess what?
What?
Got a fancy rig like this? Tired of paying $60 for a half-finished AAA game? Well, Raid Shadow Legends is now free to play on PC and any desktop service. What are you waiting for? Dive into Raid and join the thick of the action. Push yourself to the limits and earn rewards by participating in the ongoing tournaments. Compete against the entire community of gamers by tackling the mighty foes in the dungeons. Take on the Spider's Den, Ice Golem's Peak, the Almighty Fire Knight, or the Notorious Dragon. Die, dragon!
Yay!
Also new to Raid, battle other players in the arena tournament, earn points, and rise through the tiers, with more rewards and more fun. But wait, if you click one of those links in the description below, over the next 30 days, new players will receive 100k silver, an energy refill, a day of XP boost, and best of all, a free champion. Yeah, that's right, it's free. Epic! These awesome rewards will be waiting for you here, but act fast. It's only available for the next 30 days. Raid Shadow Legends, it's actually pretty good. Download now for free.
That was so beautiful. That was so beautiful.
Moving on, and now that you kind of have an idea of what she's all about, let me tell you the tale of the ego and the idiot. So let's get this straight. A lot has happened over the past month that has thrust Suzanne into the spotlight, and it's something that's been brewing for over a year. All it took is one very catalyst, and the reaction initiated. The walls are caving in around Suzy, and as she desperately grasps at any way out, countless errors on her part have ultimately taken away any chance at escaping without consequence. I mean, the only thing really going for her is that massive... Well shit, I've got nothing good to say about her now. In that case, I'm going to try and recap the entire saga in as short a time as possible, so let's roll the TCAP. The saga begins back in early 2019. A YouTuber, Mark After Dark, created a meme using a clip from one of Suzy's very emphatic reaction videos.
Oh, please don't tell me that's the end of it. No! I want to spend the rest of my life like that. It feels so real. That's not fair. It's not fair. That's made me cry because it was so amazing.
Stop it. Get some help.
This was put at the start of his video, a let's play of the exact same game that Miss Suzy was reacting to, and well, that's really all he did. However, Suzy didn't like that he had used this clip and transformed it in a way that makes it look somewhat silly, so she issued a DMCA takedown of his video. Mark was not happy with this takedown because he argued that it would be covered under fair use, which received attention from many small news channels because, for some reason, everyone was misusing the copyright system at the start of 2019. I can't explain it, YouTubers just go for a phase. All is good and well until Suzy gives Mark the most ignorant reasoning for her takedown, one that doesn't justify her legal request, and one that is of false standing. Apparently, she owns the copyright to her face. Now, I know it takes up a lot of space, but that doesn't mean it is protected by copyright, maybe some international border laws, but that's not what the copyright takedown request is for. This was news and is why good old Tipster covered this story on his news show, including one episode where he interviewed an actual lawyer, which, at the time, magically disappeared. This is the main talking point from the original conflict. Tipster covers a lot of different stories. He's one of the more active and hardworking news channels on YouTube, and he doesn't necessarily pick and choose stories based on what will get views. He's not like Keemstar, who will choose the bigger stories. He's more inclined to cover the news of the day. Keemstar refused to cover this because he deemed Suzy irrelevant. Tipster didn't, and he started covering her Twitter and YouTube shenanigans, which is the publicity that she and her boyfriend's butler Steejo didn't enjoy that much. At the same time, another fella by the name of GG Reloaded was also covering Suzy and Steejo's antics and found himself also getting hit by a phantom menace, removing these videos about the channel named Suzy Lou. Definitely not a coincidence whatsoever. Of course, a lot more people were quite pissed off that critical videos covering Suzy and videos exposing her wrongdoing started going missing, and people started calling on her to explain why they have been taken down by YouTube. I unfortunately did not get to partake in such Twitter arguments because I was blocked by both parties for simply interacting with the people calling them out. That is, well, it shows how spineless they are. This all devolved to the point where her boyfriend's butler defended her for over an hour on an after-hours live stream while she did something other than walking her dog. Once she returned from her supposed dog walking, she flexed her very small ego.
Why would I care to prove my innocence to a bunch of nobodies?
And went ahead to completely embarrass herself.
Hold on.
Lots of GG Reloaded though.
Yeah, lots of GG Reload.
Oh no.
Yeah, we can't have.
And you
my
look,
God.
you can scroll down too. Like, where's the scroll?
Oh my.
Wait.
Look on the right hand
This is
side.
not-
You can scroll down.
This is not a good look, Suzy.
Wait a minute. It's all the stuff talking about the story. Wait a minute.
Yeah,
Wait a minute. Suzy, no.
The climatic expression outlined the complete and utter ignorance of Suzy and Steejo, who had just proved they had been flagging videos they did not like. Beyond this, however, nothing really progressed, and Suzy slipped into the shadows and everyone went their own way. In July, she began to do something new which went mostly unnoticed, as most of the attention from the people involved in the earlier feud had shifted towards the vindication of Slazo. As such, nobody really paid much attention to Suzy's new schemes, and it was left to brew up a toxic storm which would be unleashed in late December.
Hi. Again. I feel like I'm gonna end up having to do update videos like every 2 days. So I feel like the title of this video should be something along the lines of what the F happened.
The Suzy Lou channel was terminated in the last few days of 2019 and stayed down for under 48 hours, the reason being a triple threat copyright takedown of Naruto reaction videos by the Japanese broadcaster TV Tokyo. The takedown was a legitimate DMCA filing against the channel, meaning that this was an initiation of a legal dispute. However, for some unknown reason at the time, she was reinstated and the strikes removed without any indication of a legal settlement. Of course, this was something rather topical, and Tipster, as would be expected, began to cover her shenanigans yet again. What he uncovered, however, was something so rash and arrogant that it was ridiculous to even think how Suzy would see this as a viable way of making money online. Charging people on her Patreon to watch her sitting there making very infrequent reactions to full-length anime programs, completely undermining copyright law, as well as being a complete disgrace to reaction content on YouTube. The female Jinx, and even Jinx, had more personality.
Whoa! Yes! Bring it on!
As well as her full uploads of anime content, she would post the edited versions onto her channel and also onto her website, which she launched at the end of January this year. This was a watered down version of her premium content, which she thought was enough to avoid being flagged for copyright infringement. She even turned the opacity and volume of the anime down to try and escape the grasps of the YouTube Content ID system. She really tried to do it. She tried her best to get away with it, but she managed to take one wrong step and caught the attention of people she didn't want sticking their noses into what she was doing. It's a lesson which is taught every other month, and every single time this happens, it makes me lose faith in the intelligence of the people who upload to this site. It's quite simple. If you try and stop information from spreading by trying to remove that information, let's call it censorship, you bring more attention to it, which in turn causes it to evolve into something much bigger than what it would have been if you had just completely ignored it or responded accordingly. In February, John Swan, who is the person that has essentially destroyed Suzy Lou's reputation, uploaded a picture of Suzy and some measurements of her upper head region. The tweet was removed by Suzy for a privacy complaint after she had deleted a public image from her Instagram that was used by John just so she could take him down. The most hilarious part of this is that by taking this image down, Suzy had confirmed to many people that she indeed uses various flagging tools to remove anyone that someone slights her ego. Because of this, she had caught his undivided attention and thus began an investigative campaign into what she had done and basically dug through her dirty laundry. Then comes March. John Swan uploaded a video onto his second channel, a joking piece measuring the area that cannot be named, inspired by a video doing the exact same thing to Jack's films. His video was hit by a community guideline strike for harassment and cyberbullying. Suzy Lou had clearly flagged this video and had it taken down, and this was only the beginning. Remember Tipster? Well, he was also targeted, and he had 3 videos struck with community guideline strikes all at once, all videos covering Suzy Lou. Coincidence? I think not. But what's worse is that Suzy admitted to flagging Tipster in a tweet she sent in blind rage.
I reported his channel a long time ago. He had created a ton of videos of me, all full of completely false information. YouTube are well aware of his channel and many others who push the boundaries of what is acceptable on the site.
The best thing about this is that she had just admitted to doing something she said she hadn't done many months before. Her ego is so massive that she can't accept being in the wrong, that she tries to justify what she does by claiming that she's some target of a conspiracy. Out of all of the people to target with a flagging campaign, she chooses Tipster, someone who covers so many topics up to 3 a day that it would be unforgivable for videos about the same person to go down all at once. The irony here is that she is the one pushing the boundaries by targeting Tipster in an effort to silence him, and to stop his information reaching people who may watch her. I doubt YouTube would be investigating Tipster for reporting on the news of the day. If so, that would set a very bad precedent for the dissemination of information on YouTube. So I say that it's mostly a bluff by Suzy to say that he was being investigated, to somewhat shift the narrative from her doing dodgy things to people being investigated for harassment. What this does show, however, is that Tipster is doing something right. He's doing his job and it's working. It's safe to say that Tipster tries to maintain some journalistic integrity with his videos, and his efforts are to expose the injustices of the online world and hold people with influence and power accountable. That's basically the crux of being a journalist. I'm a student of journalism, second year, so I've been fed all of the theory of journalism, and many of my tutors and lecturers are quite esteemed in the field of journalism. I've been taught about what journalism is and what it stands for, but I've also been told about the way people respond to journalists and the field itself. People with something to hide hate journalists. There are so many countries where being a journalist is as dangerous as being on the front lines of a war zone. Governments hate what journalists do, and that is to expose the truth. Likewise, corporate bodies are just the same, and they rarely interact with the press because they usually have something to hide. The gist of what I'm trying to say is that a journalist is doing their job right when the person who has something to hide tries to silence them. Suzy Lu is trying to hide something, and this is why she tries so hard to make sure her critics can't call her out, and that the people covering what she does seemingly disappear. In my mind, this implies a level of guilt established before she even goes into full meltdown, which is exactly what follows. This is also the end of Suzy Lu and the rise of the Karen. The internal rage of Suzy Karen Lu came out a few days after Tipster received his community guideline strike for harassment and cyberbullying. On Twitter, where she had recently purged all of her tweets, she was gloating about how YouTube reviewed the videos and that it was all a legitimate takedown of Tipster's content. Some guy replied to her taking a dig at her ego and stating that she wasn't important enough to review all of her flags on YouTube, to which she replied, "I have a partner manager, you idiot. Lol." Roll the Nick tracks.
Suzy, no!
One other thing that people couldn't pin on Suzy was whether or not she had someone within YouTube helping her get her own way, because there were many things questionable about her return from a DMCA termination, as well as how easily videos from her detractors were taken down. It kind of reminds me of how coincidental it was that Kokonaru's video on H3H3 was removed for harassment after Ethan had talked to Susan Wazowski about policies that should be introduced to protect creators. Now, it's purely speculation that H3 had gone ahead and told Susan to take that video down, but Karen here says she has a partner manager, so her flags were expedited beyond bot review. How interesting. She complained to a manager to get her own way. It really does write itself. She is a full-blown Karen. This was exceptionally displayed by the video that opened the floodgates. On the 4th of April, John Swan uploaded his video on Suzy Lu, almost half an hour of him going through what Suzy had done, is doing, and the overall questionability of her status on the platform. It was fair criticism and highlighted the lack of logic and credibility of Karen and her boyfriend's butler. It also exposed her intrinsic copyright infringement scheme, the one where she uploaded many episodes of anime videos, put full-length episodes behind a paywall, and also the way she tried to avoid the copyright holders. He also exposed a possible breach of legal status by YouTube, as he questioned how Suzy was able to get her channel back in such a short time when the copyright holder has 14 days to submit a notice of legal action to keep the videos down, a breach of safe harbor. The majority of the video consisted of fair, balanced, and justified criticism that emphasized an issue with Suzy Lu's behavior and practices online. Despite the odd few references to her boyfriend's butler being a car and the subtle slants at the northern regions of her head, there was nothing necessarily harmful or unjust with the commentary. Furthermore, it probably wouldn't have done anything to really disrupt Suzy and what she was doing. After 4 days of it being uploaded, it had less than 20,000 views and was slowly growing. However, this changed when The Quartering, Creepshow Art, and a few others made videos about the situation and gave John's video a nice kickstart in the algorithm. A few days later, it seems the ego of a certain someone couldn't take the heat, and had to do something to make them feel better about themselves as they lose control of the perception of their image.
The original upload of this video was taken down from YouTube for violating their community guidelines on harassment and bullying. I'm re-uploading this video because I believe all the criticism is valid and needs to be talked about. Suzy Lu is destroying the platform, and I can't let that happen.
Yep, that's right. John Swan's video, coincidentally, went down just as it started gaining traction in the algorithm. This seems very familiar, doesn't it? Of course, Suzy couldn't contain herself, tweeting out hints of impending takedown hours in advance of it happening. But the one thing she didn't think about, the recurring theme throughout this whole saga, by taking the video down, she gave the situation more attention, and this time the audience was much, much larger than before. This is how Suzy fell. After taking down John's video, many larger creators with an influence of millions combined jumped in and took aim at Suzy for what can only be described as an effort to silence those who speak out about her. It was quite the slam down all at once, and little Suzy and her boyfriend's butler didn't know what they had got themselves into. To add further insult to injury, John Swan's re-uploaded video had already surpassed the original video in a very short time. If this doesn't teach anyone a lesson, if another YouTuber or online personality does this in the future, I'm gonna go out of my way and say that they shouldn't be allowed a platform because they are a liability to the thinking of society. Stop doing things that have been proven to go completely wrong, and stop ignoring all of the free advice and warnings that were given by people who made these stupid decisions. At the end of the day, it's a testament to the issue with people becoming internet famous, the internet sensations. Mostly all of them have little to no common sense and are all fueled by unstable egos. Let's hope Suzy Lu becomes an example of what happens when you cross the line far too many times, because it seems her time censoring creators and stealing content is coming to an end. In a cringe but sort of unironic way, this whole thing was a war. It was a war for the future of YouTube and what's acceptable from those who use it. There is now a precedent set for the reaction to people who try to undermine the YouTube systems for their own gain, and also those who put the entire ecosystem at risk due to their greed. Suzy is paying the price for this, as there are multiple plot lines underway, with companies seeking compensation for what she has done, platforms removing her from their sites, and unexpected allies helping from the shadows. It has been one of the most iconic and captivating pieces of drama I have ever witnessed, and it's happening to someone who is quite literally a nobody in the realm of YouTube. After the videos, a lot has happened, and John Swan & Co have maintained an active journal of the actions taking place against Suzy Lu and Steejo, as well as what they've been doing to deflect attention. Most notably is the revelation that there are plans for companies such as TV Tokyo and Funimation to file lawsuits against Suzy and Steejo for their theft of intellectual property. There have also been people who have actually worked on the anime as voice artists come out and criticize her for doing so, making the point that Suzy made more in a month from patrons than they did as the lead character in an entire season. As well as this, many videos were taken down by copyright trolls on both Suzy and Steejo's YouTube channels, so make of that as you will. Can we also get an F in chat for Suzy's Patreon after it was removed for breaking the guidelines and stolen content? In fact, we crossed live to veteran television journalist and award-winning Emmy boaster Chris Hansen, who was at the scene.
Chris Hansen here from Have a Seat with Chris Hansen, bringing some rather interesting developments regarding the YouTube copybrat from Glasgow Highlands, Suzy Lu. In a rather surprising turn of events, it would appear that Suzy's exclusive Patreon, where she went by the screen name Suzy Lu GME, was recently shut down out of the blue after an investigation, leaving many to speculate if perhaps Patreon stepped in and suspended her page for hosting full-length, uncensored reactions to these Chinese cartoons she seems to love so much. But Suzy was quick to take to Twitter and let everyone know that she'd been preparing for quite some time to abandon the $10,000 a month from her Patreon and pivot towards something far more lucrative instead. Within hours, Suzy announced that her website would soon be reimbursing all her former patrons who had been charged just days before, and she claims to have shut down the page. But, Suzy, I have the chat logs right here. Patreon themselves confirmed that they indeed revoked your page upon inspection after uncovering multiple instances of piracy, which is a pretty serious violation of copyright, according to their terms of service. Now, why would you lie about such a thing? Did you really think that you weren't going to get caught? Profiting off content that isn't yours is quite a serious crime, Suzy, especially when you're making well over the annual voice actors' salaries per month. You do realize what's going to happen now, don't you, Suzy? What Suzy doesn't know is she's going to have to deal with some not-so-friendly lawyers pretty soon who will be escorting her to the big house right after. Stick around to see what happens to the serial copyright thief as we continue our investigation into online copyright abusers. Let Suzy be a lesson to any would-be content thieves. Or you just might end up having a seat with me in the courthouse. Remember, I will be watching. Stay tuned.
Thank you, Chris. Now, there's of course another party involved in this whole fiasco. However, he thinks that your criticism is invalid because he doesn't respect you.
For you to give criticism, you require respect. I don't respect you, and therefore your criticism is fucking nonsense.
The words of a true genius. So it would be pointless for me to give criticism if it's going to fall on dead ears, so I'm gonna have to find someone to deliver it for me. This requires a mediator to help, so I've called on Bowblax to deliver Suzy Lou's boyfriend's butler's criticism from his own ego. And by criticism, we're just reading a bunch of his tweets that make him look like an ass. Take it away, ballbag.
Kid, you don't understand these things, and I get it. You were just parroting what others have told you to think. Please just go back to them and ask them what you're supposed to think. You've obviously never dealt with copyright strikes or the Content ID system. Sorry, John Swan. You lost any right to a civil conversation when you were posting Discord screenshots out of context to try and say that Suzy was a pedophile, then blocked us both. Fuck your debate. I'd rather organize a fight and punch your cunt in. I'll leave you with this gem. Never judge someone's character based on words of another. Instead, study the motives behind the words of the person casting the bad judgment. Suzy Chasm. Laughing my fucking ass off. We are the Copyright Protection Federation and we've come to dry up every chick's pussy in a 10-mile radius. These aren't claims, kid. These are strikes. They are already strikes. Jesus Christ. I addressed that months ago. I addressed that in my reply to Quartering's first fucking video. He even said that he understood that and had no idea why people would pay $5 a month to us when they could pay the same to Crunchyroll, etc. for more anime without anyone speaking. Ask yourself, who is going to pay $5 a month to get half of an anime series with someone talking all the way through it? With new episodes going out maybe daily, when they could pay the same $5 to get the entire show now, plus a ton of other anime? The answer is, people want to see the reaction, and don't really care about the anime itself.
So, I guess we're caught up with that then. This situation has been evolving ever so much that for some it's been hard to keep up with what's happened as well as what's happening. What can be said is that this has received a lot of attention and so many people have covered it that it's now a trending topic. I was in an impromptu livestream the other day with John Swan and over 2,000 people joined it at one point. The community really doesn't like Suzy and Steejo. With the constantly changing environment, it's hard to get a real understanding of the information as it's always being updated. However, out of all of this, one thing hasn't changed, and that is the character of both Suzy and Steejo. Now, as you just heard from Bowblax, Steejo would rather fight John Swan than have a fair debate with him on his own channel. A grown man would rather fight a 19-year-old than go toe-to-toe verbally where he can actually have a chance at defending his case. Either way, Steejo is a coward. He won't debate John because he knows he would be steamrolled, and he only said he'd fight John because of the certain global crisis currently underway. Even if Steejo is joking, at this point he doesn't have the room to afford such ignorance because the reputation of his and his master's girlfriend are at stake. The way they conduct themselves online is one that baffles me because the way they speak doesn't reflect well on them whatsoever, especially at a time where they want to be winning back support. Suzy's channel has been on a nosedive, she's lost her major income stream, and she has to hope that people stick around for her premium website. But by consistently proving how much of a shitty mentality she has and how much of an entitled prat both she and Steejo are, it seems like they want to lose everything. The past comments by Suzy on McDonald's workers wanting a £2 per hour wage increase are going to come back to haunt her when she's handing in her resume at a local Macca's joint. But she wouldn't really like doing that considering her and Steejo seemingly have an issue with obesity, to the point that Steejo, the man who supposedly studied law and who is apparently a doctor too, made some very definite statements regarding obesity. What else is there? Oh yes, these lovely tweets from last year. Very small ego, mind you. A lovely person. But the thing I think is most apparent about the character of Suzy and Steejo is that they are so wrapped up in their own world that they neglect everything around them and, in essence, reality. You don't need to dig through their past tweets or look at the way they respond to people on Twitter to find a gotcha moment, because their general demeanor reeks of privilege and naivety. They don't understand the world and they don't understand people. All they know is that when people talk about the things they're doing wrong, it affects them financially and affects their privileges. So to stop such things, they ensure that people know they're victims rather than the perpetrators. Unfortunately for them, it's obvious when they lie and when they try to victimize themselves, and people are a lot wiser to their schemes than they think. Hundreds of thousands of people are laughing, and they continue to dig, and dig. It's sad. It's genuinely disheartening that they are so unaware and rely on their echo chamber of yes men to get by. All they had to do was admit they did some stupid things and move on, but they just didn't want to lose. The captain always goes down with his ship is admirable, but so bloody moronic when your revenue stream comes from online assets. It's also a testament to their behavior that there are brands willing to partner with the people calling them out for their bullshit, but don't go to them for any promotion. All they are doing is taking loss after loss, and it's just not normal. It's like beating a dead horse, but it's a zombie and keeps coming back. For their own sanity, they should just let the story die and stop feeding it with more fuel. It's truly pathetic. So this is an unscripted part of the video just because over the past week while I've been editing, something happened that I believe needs to be addressed. So the other day, Suzy posted on Instagram a very long story about how she's feeling and what she's going through from her perspective, I guess. People were genuinely concerned with her, but that changed rather quickly. So a few days later, she uploaded a video onto her channel titled Goodbye, and the thumbnail was her crying. It turns out it was an anime reaction video, and she had just clickbaited what she had posted in the Instagram. And then you go to Twitter to admit that you clickbaited the drama channels, the people that you bloody implied that they're the reason for this in your post. It's disrespectful, it's disgraceful. You can't go around stigmatizing mental health. By doing so, you're actually hurting the people who genuinely are suffering because they're scared to come out, they're scared to reach out. They don't want people to think that they're faking it, because people like you use it as a way to clickbait drama channels as a gotcha. It's just disgraceful. That's really all I can say. And it's pissed everyone off. So at the end of the day, your online platform is determined by public opinion, and I think that judgment is out.
Hello and welcome to the Supreme Court of Public Opinion, the home of a judge with too much free time. And this is the internet against Suzy Lu. Today I will be handing down the judgment of public opinion on the accused Suzy Lu and Steejo. Now, after much deliberation over the facts given by the prosecution, I declare that the image of Suzy Lu and Steejo in the eyes of public opinion is damaged beyond repair, even though I don't think that's how courts work. BWC. I find in relation to the accusation of censorship, Suzy Lu indeed took it upon herself to find ways in removing content she did not like. Her defense of ignorance is not a valid excuse for doing so, and her lack of accountability fails to meet the expectations of public opinion. For that reason, the court decides in favor of the prosecution. The second accusation of anime theft was a hard-fought battle of verbal testimony. However, I find that the evidence of there being anime companies investigating Suzy Lu to outweigh the defense of it being nonsense. You just getting my voice in here to lend your part credibility. It must also be noted that the removal of Suzy Lu's Patreon was done by Patreon and not by Suzy herself. This public opinion is thus in favor of the prosecution. Finally, the question of the character of Suzy Lu and Steejo has been outlined perfectly. The countless tweets showing the lack of understanding of others and displaying the entitlement of being able to sit in a room and watch videos all day is negatively received by the public. The condescending and highly egotistical nature of Suzy and Steejo's comments on many different topics, including obesity and minimum wage. Doesn't quite flow as a sentence, BWC, you might want to work on that. Also, the overall actions of the two individuals have, as it's multiple individuals, it's have. Keep an eye on the script here. In the public's opinion, made them appear to be unlikable and untrustworthy figures. Based on the court's finding, I, or as BWC has written me, must make the final decision. I declare that Suzy Lu and Steejo have been #sister cancelled by the internet. Did you really write that? Court is adjourned, and now I meant to wave a gavel or something, so I just add a sound effect or something. Oh yes, by the way, don't forget to check out everyone featured in this video. Their links are down in the description. You should also totally like this video and subscribe to BWC. Gee, I wonder who wrote that. Gee, I wonder who wrote all this part, you little prick. That is all. Thank you for watching.
Big up Big White Company for having me on his channel again. If you've not subscribed to him, you should be subscribed to him. Don't forget to leave a like, go down there, touch his bell, turn on his notifications, and thank you all for watching. Peace soup. Sorry bro, I've always wanted to teabag you, so like, come get your tea! Oh, it's running from his nose. Hot fresh tea. What am I doing?